Don't worry guys, I am here. I'm just trying to set up a few things, so just give me a moment. Hello? Am I good? Is this good? Is everything okay? Let me check. Oh no, everything isn't okay. No. Ah! Oh, it's a little laggy, I think. Oh no. But okay, this is fine, I guess. I'm a little bit late on this. Still trying to get the handle on everything. Yeah, yep. There is a little bit of lag. So let me see. I think everything should be good on y'all end, maybe. There we go. Hopefully this is good. I'm still getting used to this, but I have a new little background to pretty much like explain like how the setup is hopefully going to look like from now on if I continue, you know, doing the live streaming thing. I think this is interesting. And this is actually going to be a interesting I think I'm talking right now. I'm not 100% sure, actually. Let me just, I want to, this is really new. Okay, but yeah. So if you've seen the title and if you saw my post, I'm going to try and do a reaction to AsarathhaHS's reviewing My Hero Academia's arc, Act 3 of 3, My Hero Academia Retrospective. And I'm going to see if any more people will be coming. I highly doubt it. So most likely this is probably going to be not necessarily a shorter stream, but probably not the most inventive or creative or like newish type of stream. But yeah, I just decided to do this because I realized that he released a video recently, and while I'm not the biggest fan of Asaratha, noises. Asaratha as a person, I do like how he edits his videos, and I kind of like how that is done. So yeah, I'm doing this just because I think that this would be like a fun opportunity for me to do this, and I think that this could be entertaining, giving like my thoughts and my ideas on like how I view like his like story, or like how he views the story of My Hero Academia, because we could have like differing ideas on the story itself. So, Rebel Key first. Hi, Rebel Key. I'm glad you're here. I don't know how many people are actually going to show up. What I can do is like share this stream on Twitter, I guess. Yeah, whoever sees it. So I'll just post it to Twitter. Yeah, I'm not gonna call it X, so I posted it to Twitter. Should I post it to Facebook? Oh gosh, there are a lot of places where I could post like me live streaming this, but this Twitter, I guess, is fine. If anyone comes from there, that's fine. But yeah, like I said, pretty much what I'm going to be doing is, that was a little bit. Pretty much what I'm going to be doing is like just doing a live reaction to his video. I don't know what's in it. I haven't seen his other previous videos. I know that he released at least obviously 2 before this one, but I haven't watched those because like I'm not like I said, I'm a fan of his like content, like how he edits it, but I'm not a fan of like how he views the story, because I think we view the stories in like 2 different ways, so it's like, I don't know if I want to watch it. Also, I have had like a few interactions like with him, and like he seems to be kind of like a dick. I'm not assuming like who he is or like what he's doing or like why he's doing this, but like from my interactions and what I've seen from like a podcast that he's been on, Shonen and Chill, and like how he interacts with like people in his community, as well as the fact that I have done like a sort of pseudo rebuttal reaction video and how he just completely dismissed it, and just how he like views like criticisms of his work, or how he views like communicating with people, is not something that I really jive with. But I'm going to see whether or not I agree with like what we're going to be watching today. It is a very long video. It is 3.5 hours long. So most likely than not, I'm probably not going to get through all of it, especially since this is a reaction. Most likely than not, I will probably be talking over a lot of it. So if you haven't seen the video prior in its entirety, you should probably go watch that first before you come over here. But if you don't care, I can understand that because this is my first time reacting to it. So I'm not going to tell you what you should and shouldn't do. But yeah, this is the layout, and I'm probably going to wait for a few more people to like arrive to see if like any of them are going to be here. And if not, you'll just be watching me watch this video. So that's going to be very interesting. But like just maybe like talking a little bit more. I'm still getting used to this setup. I was going to do it like the day. Oh, hey, Tsurugi. Oh, I'm glad that you're here. So this is something that like I tried to set up like a few days ago, and I probably would have done it the day after his video got released, but unfortunately I had some issues with my back because this is not like the best chair for really anything. Fun story about this chair, I guess. The chair that I had originally was like the stereotypical like gamer streamer chair. So it was red, obviously. It has decent back support. Unfortunately, it wasn't built for someone of my build, so eventually it did break. And I found this one on the street. Like, not the most like bombastic story, but like, yeah, I found it on the street, and like, frankly, it's doing fine. It just squeaks every so often. Also, is my audio good? Because that's something else that I noticed with my other stream, that the audio seemed a little bit wonky. So I'm going to like double check to make sure everything is good on that, because I don't want this like video to just be, oh gosh, just be like what's the word I'm looking for? Just be illegible. Illegible? Words escape me sometimes. But yeah, I'm going to double check to see if everything is good. Let's see. Going into... yeah, I'm making sure... yeah, y'all aren't seeing any of this. Yeah. Y'all ain't seeing my personal stuff. That's fine. So I'm going to go to systems. I'm going to go to sound. Input and out. Okay, the volume. Probably going to lower that. Sorry about that. Then you have input. Probably going to lower that as well. For my microphone, yeah, I'm gonna lower that as well. So hopefully, the volume is a little bit better. Hopefully, let's see, other sound. Yeah, I think that should be output. I'm gonna go to output. Yeah, everything seems good for the actual like speakers for the Yeti microphone. Everything seems good, like around 78. So I'm probably gonna dial that back. I'm sorry about this. Y'all are hearing all of these noises, but yeah, I think that should be good. I'm gonna go to microphone. Yep, its input is at 67. I think that should be fine. I may lower that down to 64. Let's see. That should be good. I think that should be fine. Not 100% sure, but hopefully when I listen back to it, it's going to be a lot better than it was for the last few streams. At least that's what I'm hoping for. So yeah, that should be everything that I want to do for there. And I think I've been doing it. The audio is good. Oh, it's low now. Okay. So it was good. Okay. Then, all right. Then let me fix that. The audio was good. Then probably going to bring that up to 75, 73, 71, 74. Is this good? Oh gosh. This is what happens when I just mess with stuff. I make things worse. Actually, let me go back. Let's see. Other sound devices. I think I went here. That's at 74. I think that should be good. Speakers are 75. So is it still good now? Is it still too low? Do I need to like pitch it up higher? Is it good here? I'm not sure. Let me double check just in case. Oh yeah, this is a fun stream. This is so fun. I love this so much. Let's see. I'm gonna bring that up to that, and let's see. Probably gonna get out of studio mode. Okay. Is the audio good now? Rebel key. It's good? Okay. It's good? It's good. Alright. That's all I need to know. Alright, so I think I've rambled on long enough. So I guess I'll just dive right into the actual reaction. Let me do a screen share. Let's see. I'm gonna do something amazing. I'm gonna do something cool. Watch this. Watch this. And transition. Whoa. Oh, isn't that so cool? I look like I'm an actual streamer. Oh, this is so great. Oh, this is amazing. Oh, this is so cool. All right. So I think everything is good. So I'm probably just going to jump right into it. I'm going to make sure that the volume is a little bit lower than it probably should. And then we'll begin. Ready? In 3, 2, 1, go.
Should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show.
Just like when you got some coffee that's too black, which means it's too
That
strong.
full screen.
What you do, you integrate it with cream.
We've seen war. We don't want war.
Okay, yeah. This is a nice beat. Act 3. All right. All right, we're getting somewhere.
It was September 27th, 2021, and the MHA fans were already beaten down and trodden upon after the defeats of Season 5. Not only had some of the series' best content been absolutely butchered by the adaptation, but one of the worst arcs in the series had gotten a great adaptation. Tensions were high, the fandom was infighting, as more and more people defected to become haters. Things were not all gloomy, however, as the manga had finally entered its third and final act, and the content we were getting was looking great, until that fateful day.
Oh my gosh, I swear.
Mutual blocks, accusations of switching up, and generally buffoonery took place, as the biggest upheaval in the fandom's history occurred. On one side, you had the people who would act as if they were on Shueisha's payroll, refusing to acknowledge or accept any and all criticism of the story, and that people who said these things were simply doing it for the clout.
Ugh.
On the other hand, you had the people that didn't need an alarm clock, as their hatred woke them up, ready to call anybody who mildly praises the series a dick writer.
Oh gosh.
There existed a middle ground of people who legitimately enjoyed or criticized the series. However, due to the sheer polarization at the time, one side or another would lump you in with the other. However,
I mean,
it wasn't always like this.
This is kind of
Act
accurate.
3 of My Hero Academia in online spaces started off with immense hype that had just featured some of the series' strongest chapters to date. Hawks vs. Twice, Deku vs. Shigaraki, the Dabi reveal, Toya backstory, Chapter 305, and of course, Chapter 306, which ended Act 2.
Yeah, this is
Season
pretty
5
accurate
was,
so
to
far.
put it bluntly, a shit show. But people still had manga chapters to look forward to. As Act 3 progressed, however, the tide quickly changed. A series that ultimately relied on the potential of, this is great setup, I can't wait to see how it's executed later, now finally had a timer placed on it. MHA spent much of Act 1 and 2 doing setup, and Act 3 meant it was time for execution. But people began to worry about executing the massive scope of the series in just one act. But Act 2 was super long, so it'll be fine.
I mean,
right? As people
these should
perceived
have-
that chapter
okay, let me-
quality got worse and worse,
see, here's the thing that I have with that. Like, while yes, Act 1 and Act 2 were set up, Act 1 was set up for Act 2. And what we got for Act 2 was just resolving what we got with Act 1, as well as, like, setting up some stuff for Act 3. So, to think that Act 1 and 2 would build up to the entirety of Act 3 seems like a little, like, copium to me, especially with the stuff that we got in Act 2 was not even setting up for Act 3 inherently, but was setting up for the war, the first war. That's where a lot of the setup for Act 2 was setting up for, and a lot of it did get paid off. So it's like, I don't necessarily agree with that, but like, I'll continue watching.
the polarization of the fandom only grew. However,
Okay.
it only really grew on one side. the side of toxic positivity. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad thing at all to enjoy the story or not enjoy it at all,
I mean, sure.
but people would genuinely begin to go out of their way to harass and attack people for simply posting criticism,
And
running people out of the
yeah,
community,
that's
or
not great.
continually following them around to make fun of their takes. It was genuinely just weirdo behavior, as people who based their entire personality off of a manga took it as a personal attack when you said something was mid. On top of all that, Horikoshi's health in the final stretch of the series was clearly declining.
I mean, yeah.
Rapid pacing, occasional 11 or even 9-page chapters, a multitude
an
of
issue.
unexpected breaks, and
That was also an
unfinished
issue.
chapter art.
And
What
that
makes
was
this
also an
especially sad is that multiple other mangaka like Oda, Tabata, or Gege around this same time were given month-long breaks or even more to prepare for their final act. Whether Horikoshi refused it or just didn't try to take one is unknown,
Yeah.
but it also likely contributed to the declining quality of the series. Whether you just like Act 3 of MHA or not, Horikoshi and by extension all other Weekly Shonen Jump mangaka deserve better. The
mean,
weekly
yeah.
production cycle is disastrous for numerous people like Kubo, Togashi, or even brand new authors like the one of Ruri Dragon, who already had to take a hiatus.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty, like, accurate. A lot of, like, the stuff that happens in, like, the mangaka world, we are not privy to. Not just because that we're not Japanese, but because a lot of what they do is most likely, like, kept in, like, secret. So, like, this tracks a lot. And, like, the first part of this entire, like, section, so, like, up until, like, we start going into, like, Villain Hunt. And I'm looking a little bit ahead, and I see what's coming up, unfortunately. But, like, for the most part, yeah, what he's saying here is
This
accurate.
sad reality, however, was used against people as ammo for wanting a better series, stating that by wanting more from MHA, you actually want Horikoshi to work himself to death, genuinely leveraging human suffering to try and dunk on people on the internet over a comic book. But let's stop talking about the fandom for now, and let's talk about where it all went wrong. An arc that changed the perception of My Hero Academia forever, the Battle of Villain Hunt.
And I will say this is probably where we're going to get my first decisive, like, disagreement with what is going to be going on. But let's go into it, because this is still very much well animated. I'm not gonna, or well edited. I'm not gonna, like, harp him for that. But, like, here's where we're probably gonna get into some disagreements.
Somebody who was very notable for the backlash to their thoughts on Villain Hunt as an arc. You want to tell us about that experience?
In one word, disappointing, I guess. Because at that point, I had been making content for My Hero Academia.
Yeah, if you don't know who's, like, talking right now, it's Ocean Man's. He used to do a lot of, like, My Hero Academia content, a lot of, like, some Naruto. Now he's doing pretty much Monster Hunter at this point. But yeah, he was something that I actually followed a lot, and I actually liked a lot of his videos. But at a certain point, we just disagreed on, like, how the story interpretations, like, came into being. And then, you know, stuff happened afterwards.
For half a decade. You know, over half of the time the manga had been running. And I had situations where people disliked my content or a particular take, but it had never been that overwhelmingly unanimous.
Obviously, the community was split. You know what I mean? Villain Hunt had a lot of raw text with it. It had a lot of, again, good ideas. Some felt it was good execution. Others felt it came up short. I can see both sides. I think, again, good ideas, execution need to be longer and need to be more thorough.
Like, I never experienced people turning on me so quickly. And I don't want to be like, oh, you got canceled or whatever. Like, I didn't. I absolutely didn't. And a lot of people, even people I didn't expect, came to like talk people down and tell them, hey, don't be shitheads to Oceans. But I guess sort of the big thing for me was how little it mattered in the end that I had made like 100 videos on MHA, mostly positive. That in that moment it was just like, oh, he talked some shit about Gentle and he talked some shit about Villain Hunt. Teacher, kill him. But what was going on in the My Hero fandom at the time was exceptionally disheartening.
MHA Twitter, you know, especially with season 5, it all really began with the arc switch, the spiral that led to the downfall of the MHA community and the separation of people arguing constantly. You were either a hater if you didn't like something, or B, you were a hoary writer. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it should have never been that. For anybody who was on those sides, it should have always been, you know, a difference in perspective. But unfortunately, you know, again, the season 5, I mean, it drove us down a very bad spiral for the community, and nothing was pretty much ever the same after that to this day.
This is My Hero Academia's worst arc so far. When the arc started, the community was united. Everyone was excited for Midoriya to finally get his long-awaited arc solely about him, his struggles, and his new ideology. This was the time we got to see the fallout of the massive war that had just taken place, to see how it affects our cast. These literal students, to see people react to the secrets of One for All being revealed, or about how they might react to Endeavor's dark history being revealed. Almost everything you can think about when it comes to Villain Hunt didn't happen. Of course, a story not doing what you expected it isn't an inherent negative, but also, it's not an inherent positive. People went into Villain Hunt with a lot of ideas of what they wanted, and while some people were happy with what they took away from it, a lot of people, myself included, felt it was sorely lacking. A lot of people tend to make fun of people because, oh, you're just mad the story didn't go the way you wanted, and yeah, that's how it works. We have nothing to judge stories on besides our own wants and expectations. Some people just have different wants or expectations, or are more lenient with a story going against what they wanted. The big point for a lot of people is Deku himself. My Hero Academia had set expectations for itself that it failed to live up to. Going into this arc, a lot of people were starving for Deku content, as he hadn't had a prominent role in his own story since maybe Culture Festival, which, sure, 2 seasons doesn't feel like a lot on it.
And this is probably where I'm going to pause right here, because this section of the story, or this section of the video, is probably where we, like, differ between, like, Deku's story arc and, like, how I view Deku's story. And I think that while, yes, this is, like, a story about Deku becoming, like, the greatest hero, ooh, let me just, actually, give me a moment. Okay, I think everything is good. What I was saying is, like, this is probably the start where I kind of, like, disagree with Asarath's, like, perception of the story and Deku as a character and the role that he serves in the story, which is primarily, let me give you a moment, I'm gonna have to mute this for a moment. Okay, sorry about that. My family, obviously, I live with them, so they were just talking. So I wanted to mute that so that y'all didn't necessarily have to hear that. But the point that I was making is that when it comes to Deku within the story of My Hero Academia, it's not really about Deku. Deku as a character is relatively unchanged throughout the entire story. In a way, you could make the argument that Deku's, like, character arc is more of a flat character arc. Not that he doesn't change at all throughout the story, but that the focus on Deku is not how the world changes him, but how he changes the world with his perspective. Because him wanting to save the villains is not that vastly different from just his general ideology of saving. The only difference is that he encompasses villains into the people that he thinks he needs to save. Give me one more moment. Sorry, let me just get a minute. I'm going to transition. And I am back. I think everything is going fine. I think everything is going fine. So yeah, sorry. I had some family stuff that's going on, but yeah, once again, this is just boiling down to, ooh, one moment. All right, sorry. This is gonna probably be like this for a little while because we have some unexpected, like, just guests in the house. But yeah, long story short, I think this is just going to be a difference on like interpreting like what Deku means as a character in the story and how the story has been treating him. So let's just continue.
Binge, but for weekly readers, that was 3 entire years. This arc came off the heels of what many people consider peak My Hero Academia, or the golden trio of My Villain Academia, Endeavor Agency, and the Paranormal Liberation War arc. This stretch of arcs set up Midoriya big time for a huge fall from grace, a point where he devalued himself to the point of calling himself only his power, devaluing himself to a point where he will destroy himself to achieve his power's goal. An arc in the making for 3 years, however, failed tremendously to deliver on its primary function. Chapter 305 was an example of how incredible it is to hear Deku's thoughts on his own problems, grappling with the ideas of saving a villain or killing him, but My Hero Academia opts to more or less not deliver on the very premise this arc was founded upon, which is exploring Midoriya. You would hope that after 300 chapters, you would expect an entire arc surrounding Deku and his self-sacrificial nature would cover how we end up this way, or delve deeper into Midoriya's psyche to further unravel his self-destructive state, but it completely fails in providing Deku's point of view and really only let him be at his lowest point for like 5 seconds before the kids have to be shoehorned back in. People who had problems with this were labeled POV merchants by the positive side of the fandom, and yes, I would like it if the series delivered on its main character, my bad. This kind of summarizes the arc in a sense. It promises so much but delivers on all of that in a depressingly limited fashion. Instead of deep introspection on how Midoriya wound up here, he progresses maybe one step forward before being saved by his friends, but that big growth of Deku accepting people at the end felt unearned and glossed over. Chapter 317 is a perfect example of this. It's a chapter that people considered one of the best in the entire series, with hype at an all-time high as Deku dramatically dismisses All Might and chooses to go on a path alone and throw away any and all help. He is shown struggling, fighting a bunch of villains for like 1 plank second before the kids are there to save him, and then Deku says sorry to All Might, but also...
Oh, let me just... Yep, sorry about that. Yeah, this is probably going to be a shorter live stream than I really intended, so I'm probably just going to go through just Villain Hunt, because I think this is probably going to be the start, and just a lot of disagreements, but like just going through the chapters, I actually want to see how many chapters, because this is a long video. I want to see how many chapters are actually here. Oh gosh, Shoto versus Dabi and Endeavor. Oh gosh, there's a lot. Okay. So, yeah, most likely than not, I probably won't go through all of it, but that's fine. I wasn't intending to do, like, a massive thing with this, but just a small, like, test to see, like, what I can and can't do. So, there's that. So, let's continue. I'll try to continue at least through Villain Hunt, which is, like, 30 minutes, and I think that will probably be enough.
Everything that happened was because you weren't there. Villain Hunt feels like a SparkNotes version of the arc Horikoshi wanted to make, and it doesn't really end there. This can be felt primarily through the pacing of the arc. If you don't know what I mean by pacing, I mean the speed at which a story is told. Pacing is determined by the length of events, how fast the action moves, how quickly the reader is provided with info, and so on and so forth. And after the war arc, and even near the end of it, it's as if you were in a car with Horikoshi and he dropped a cinder block on the gas pedal, and he doesn't let go for like 2 years. Oh man, I wonder how Midoriya's arms go. Oh, there it is. Oh geez. I can't wait to see how Midoriya wins over the second and third users of One for All. And it's over. Alright, well, I guess he didn't have to convince them at all.
I mean,
Holy crap, they're going to the evil villain lair. Oh, we're outside now, and everything happened off screen.
Okay,
Wow, Midoriya's at his lowest moment and just abandoned All Might? Oh, I blinked, and the class is here to save him, and everything's better now. Never mind. The absolutely insane pacing of the series in this arc can also be felt through Midoriya's quirks. Deku spent 4 seasons getting a grasp on 20% of his power, and of course, we couldn't necessarily continue with that snail's pace, but at the end of Season 5, Midoriya goes from 20% in Black Whip to how he is at the end of Season 6, which is Foe 100% with Black Whip, Danger Sense, Float, Smokescreen, and Fajin. Fajin is a quirk I genuinely dislike for its narrative implications. It only exists as a way to artificially inflate Midoriya's power level, and acts as a band-aid for Horikoshi rushing the series to its conclusion. The pacing of the series...
I don't necessarily agree with that assumption. Well, yes, it does, like, help with his power source. Like, the entire point of these quirks are that they're not supposed to be that great, that spectacular. So just having something that, like, allows him to just boost his power up to that point is kind of redundant, and that's kind of the point.
Even affects what could have been one of My Hero Academia's biggest reveals, the truth of One for All being made semi-public. All Might and Midoriya, okay, just All Might, tried to keep this quirk a secret for pretty much his entire existence, and it sort of sets up an expectation of something happening when it goes public, especially as people who get more and more inquisitive towards the nature of Midoriya's power, namely Shoto. We don't even get any widespread interest in the quirk, as it is clear some pro-heroes outside of the main ones know what the quirk is, and we're leaking information to the press about Midoriya. You know who I was really interested in seeing react to One for All? Endeavor. The guy who spent his entire life chasing the fleeting back of that power. One that he would never be able to catch up to because it would permanently outscale him. We'll get more into Endeavor later in this section, but wow, this one just fell super flat.
Here's something about that I want to argue against. I think that is under the assumption that this will be the moment that Endeavor goes through his, like, major character development. However, because of what we got with Endeavor versus Hood, and then, like, the kids, like, work the Endeavor agency arc, I think that the weight of All for One weighing on Endeavor went away because of those previous arcs, where we've already seen that he doesn't have that obsession with All for One, because while yes, he realizes that All for One was, like, what caused, like, All Might to be the #1 hero, but even if it wasn't known about All for One, like, that doesn't necessarily change, like, what happened and why he sought that position. So, like, could it have been more interesting if we, like, dived into that? Sure. But what we've already gotten with the story, like, unless you wanted him to regress, it doesn't seem like a necessity for his growth to just regress him back to what he was at the beginning of the story and then change from that when he's already become a more changed person. But that's just my idea and view of it. But let's continue.
I understand the point was that Midoriya is more than his power, and I agree with this conclusion, but I don't think having the class or anybody around him acknowledge the power is contradictory to this idea, and is very much in line with how MHA would treat its cast in the past, as living, breathing people with their own thoughts, insecurities, and beliefs on things. This is something that contributes to my dislike of the Villain Hunt arc. The characters just don't feel like anything. And if you agree they don't feel like anything since Villain Hunt, get ready to slap a new merchant title on yourself. Hello, Trauma Merchants. If you want your characters to react to the events around them, then the positive side of the fandom straight up hates you.
See, here's the thing. I honestly do not agree with, like, that idea that, oh, no, they're just, like, non-characters. They are still, in fact, characters. They've always been like this. They've always had this unifying idea to, like, help their fellow classmates. And he's most likely going to bring up, like, what happened with, like, Bakugo and him being disappeared and how they seem like all of them had their different views. Well, yes, they did have, like, different ideologies to a certain extent. They all still accepted that what they were doing was bad, and they still went against it. And even, like, in this argument, you could also make the argument that the reason why they are closer together in, like, mindset is because they've been hanging around each other a lot longer. So they began to develop, like, similar ideals and working together as one, as we saw during the provisional license exam, where they all instinctively, like, worked together as a group. So that's kind of what this is showing, that they've always been this type of collective, and we're just seeing more of it now. And they still have, like, their altering ideals, and there's still conflict there, but it's that because they've known and grown up with each other, that conflict becomes lesser and lesser because they have just gotten to know each other more, and we've gotten to know them as well. But that's just my perspective on this.
Class not really reacting to One for All is lame, but what is even more lame is them not having any complex feeling or thoughts on, I don't know, the giant war that just took place. Tokoyami found out his idol and mentor killed a man, doesn't really seem to care. Nor does Midoriya, who is now grasping with the idea of...
Okay, here's the thing. Like, Tokoyami advocated, like, even during the war, we literally saw, like, hey, no, everything's okay. Like, you did what you needed to do. Tokoyami, in the war, kind of agreed with him, so that's not really a topic of discussion.
Killing a villain. None of the Class A students care that they stumbled upon the corpse of their teacher, including Momo, who
Okay, that's another thing. They do care. We see them afterwards crying about it, and Mina, assumedly after a few days, is still, like, saddened about it. And she even brings up the idea during this point that, like, yeah, she doesn't want Deku to end up like Midnight. So, like, while we don't get them like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that Midnight is dead, like, they still address it, and it's still weighing on them.
she had the biggest relationship with, and the same kid who also lost her other teacher, Majestic, on the same fucking day. Do you remember back in the first part of the retrospective where I talked about how we should keep in mind the class feeling like living, breathing characters in Kamino? This was why I told you all to remember it. This is the decline of the cast that will be felt throughout the entire act. There are more characters to complain about, so of course we have to mention the character consequences. The war left us in quite an unsure state, with a bunch of characters taking serious damage, and considering this is a story where we followed every step of the way as a 16-year-old broke his arms into almost unusability, myself and many others were interested to see the payoff of these incidents. However, those of you might be aware that it never really comes. Whether it be emotionally or physically, the arc that is supposed to serve as the aftermath of the war completely underdelivers. If we go over our cast of injuries here, let's see. Hawks gets his back completely scorched off, as mentioned by Dark Shadow, and instead of having anything meaningful come from that, Hawks just gets better. Of course, it's taking a bit longer for his wings to come back, but besides that, nothing really comes.
That's not inherently true. Like, objectively, the story shows us and tells us that, yeah, he is weaker and slower. And you can just see, aesthetically speaking, he's not up to form. His wings are crippled. Like, they aren't to the same, like, full wingspan as they were prior. So it's like, that's the consequence, that he is not at full power, and it's literally visibly shown to us.
Of it, and it will get worse later. Shigaraki's giant cave wave that a lot of weekly readers assumed killed 13. Nope, she's fine. In fact, nobody we actually know, minus Crust, someone we still don't know because slapping a name on a nobody doesn't make us know them, actually died from that. And this is something I've talked about so much. Gran Torino gets hit so hard, blood sprays out of like every single hole in his body, and the ground underneath him explodes, but he's fine, I guess.
He's, with what we get with the end of the series, like, he's fine in the sense of, like, he's alive, but, like, for most of the month and a half or so, because we don't even know, like, when he actually is able to recover, he's not fine. He's heavily crippled. The only difference is, like, you can't say that he's fine when most of the story he's in a hospital bed.
Alright, let's see. Midoriya goes 100%, and the story dangles the scene of him being told to never do it again in front of us like keys in front of a baby, just to go, just kidding. His strength has improved, so his arms aren't destroyed. The explanation for this isn't even my problem with it, because Midoriya being rewarded for growing stronger and being able to handle 100% more consistently makes complete in-universe sense. However, just because something makes in-universe sense doesn't mean you have to like the narrative intentionally playing with your expectations to set up a more tense situation that it would deliver on.
And this actually ties into something that I wanted to say. A lot of what he's saying is like dislike, dislike, dislike. But like he's equating the dislike of what is happening for it being bad. And that's kind of the issue that, at least from my interpretation of it, I have an issue with. Because just because you don't like something does not necessarily make it bad. And this is something that I've seen throughout the community of equating something that they don't like to being poorly written when it's just not something that you enjoy. Now, you can enjoy something that or how do I put this? You can technically enjoy something that is like quote unquote bad or dislike something that is quote unquote good. But to equate your liking of something and disliking to something to being good and bad is not, in my opinion, the best mindset to have. But let's continue because there's still a lot in Villain Hunt that we need to talk about.
Effectively reducing the quality of the fight in hindsight and taking away yet another interesting consequence in an Aftermath arc, completely devoid of them. As well as randomly introducing a movie element that manga exclusive readers just straight up will not understand from off screen to further fix this issue. Let me think of some things that stuck. Twice is dead, that's for sure. I hope we get to see the villain cast react to that. Society is definitely now no longer functional, and Shigaraki is still bodyjacked by All For One. Now, this plot point was met with some apprehension. It doesn't get that much focus in the Villain Hunt arc, but All For One himself does, and some thought this was a little retconny. A lot of people, myself included, all the way back during Act 1 of the Retrospective, discussed the theme of passing the torch. All Might pass it to Midoriya to be the next symbol of peace, Endeavor to pass it down to Shoto to live out his dreams.
This is also something else. This is something else I disagree with. Endeavor doesn't pass on the torch to Shoto to be like to live up to his dreams. Like he indirectly Shoto was like doing what Endeavor wanted, but like Shoto wanted to be a hero outside of Endeavor because of All Might, but he was forced to like do it more like thoroughly because of Endeavor. Like Endeavor does not pass a torch on to Shoto. He tries to, and it fails, but the torch is still passed on to Shoto by All Might. So that's something that I disagree with.
And All For One passed the torch down to Shigaraki to be the next symbol of fear, except never mind. Sorry, let me just pull this out to make sure people pay attention. All of that stuff about not taking quirks because they weren't suitable for Tomura, or internal monologue about handing it all to him, just suddenly kind of goes away, and we're left to believe that this was the plan all along.
See, here's the thing. This is something that initially the story does hint at, like in hindsight, even earlier on than what he's pointing out right now, because the first time that we really get a look of All For One, at least within like certain translations, he says he's going to be the next me. Which is an important word of phrase in hindsight, because if he wanted to be, he's going to be the next Demon Lord, or he's going to be the next All For One, or something to that extent. Yeah, you can imagine him passing on the torch, but the fact that he specifically says the next me, and maybe this is more clear in the Japanese translation, but like, it's like, oh yeah, you're going to be the next me. You could interpret it as like you're going to be the next me in title, or you can be the next me in a literal sense. And going back and seeing that one scene makes me think, oh, he was being very literal about it. But that's just my perspective of it. And I'm going to take like a short break because I wanted to look at some stuff that's going on in chat. So I'm going to switch over to this screen for a little bit so I can actually look at the actual chat. Oh gosh, I've noticed One For All, not All For One. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've made that mistake a few times. We can't actually hear them. Wait, can y'all not? Okay. Can y'all not hear me? Let me try something into it. I'm gonna make sure that the volume is a little bit lower than it probably should, and then we'll begin. Ready? In 3, 2, 1, go.
Should not be mistaken for a cable.
Huh. I'm gonna make sure that the volume is a little bit lower than it probably should, and then we'll begin. Ready? In 3, 2. Can y'all hear me, or am I just 1? Let's see. Seems as if everything is good, but I could be wrong. But okay, you can hear me? Okay, I'm just making sure, because, like, it's a little bit off on both of my screens, so I just wasn't sure, but I just want to go over. Silver comment, Tokuyami wasn't aware of the full situation, but twice his quirk was too dangerous, had to take him out. Yeah, for Izuku's damage, he has gotten stronger physically, with better use of One for All. He is regulating the power better. You can easily see that Hawks has been weakened. Yep, my hero character's durability can vary, but yeah, Torinori, yes, exactly. He's obviously is missing some things. He's stronger than he was before the use of One for All. He's disliked in the story in some aspects, but is missing some other points that were chosen. Yeah, and well, for All For One, Shigaraki's body was a little expected and not expected. All For One did mention, yeah, Genius Course wasn't the best for Tomura. How to come up. Drew, recently I had an idea how to come. He didn't try to steal Izuku's body. The next me makes one interpretation of that body is going to be jacked, or he will haunt him for the grave to follow his will. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, you can read, that's an interpretation. Oh, okay. You couldn't hear the people. Okay. All right, cool. Maybe I can hear them and y'all could. Okay. All right, that's cool. I was a little bit worried because I don't know if they picked it up, but because, like, I could hear it, I thought y'all could hear it. Well, okay, thank gosh. You're talking about the one scene in the manga when he was about to die, then noticed Izuku and was about to take his chance for victory. Not necessarily. The scene that I'm talking about, and I want to see if I can pull it up on screen, because this is something very interesting about the story. If I remember correctly, and I promise you I don't, there is a scene where we literally have, like, confirmation of All For One saying, like, oh yeah, he's going to be the next me. I'm trying to remember where that is. I think it's like, I think it's around 36? No, maybe it's 46. I know it's like around. It's when he's talking. I don't think I'll be able to find it. I don't think that I'll be able to find it. Maybe it's 56 actually. It might be 56. That might actually be it. Nope, it's not 56. Is it 56 or 64? Might be 64. I don't think it's 64. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I'm trying to remember where it is, because it's a very important scene that really emphasizes, like, what it means in the story. I'm gonna try to find it. If I can't find it, it's fine. Yeah, but yeah, long story short, like, a large chunk of the story, like, this is something that was set up, like, very early on. So, like, the idea that the body jack was, like, something that, like, he just come up with on the fly, I don't necessarily, like, agree with that stance. But yeah, let's just go back to the main one, and let's continue watching the video.
Don't get me wrong, authors don't usually plan every single detail of their story down to the finest point, and that's good. Hawks, for example, wasn't outlined at all, and he is, or was, great. The difference here is that it feels contradictory to everything we knew about All For One, and that alongside Endeavor overtaking Shoto kind of makes the message of passing the torch feel hollow as time goes. Shigaraki got bodyjacked in chapter 295, and by the time Villain Hunt wraps up, that marks a year since Shigaraki has been himself, losing effectively one of the most interesting characters to someone who doesn't have the same weight, presence, or interest. He even goes against more of his own characterization when met with Overhaul in Tartarus, the guy who talked about not being able to help himself when he comes across a good quirk, doesn't take one of the best quirks in the universe.
And this is something else that I want to also talk about. We don't know if All For One knew that this individual had the quirk of Overhaul. We know that he knew that the quirk of Overhaul existed, but for someone who always brings up people's like legal name, like Izuku Midoriya, and even like with the more pro heroes, he never brings up Overhaul's name, Kai Chisake. He always refers to him as the like young head of the 7 precepts. And while he did know what Overhaul looked like as a kid, like maybe, we do not know if he knows Overhaul as a quirk is inside of Kai, just due to the fact that like so much time has passed between the incident where most likely Kai was in that orphanage and it burned down to him becoming the head of like the 7 precepts. And because his quirk is so valuable, from the story's perspective, it was seemingly kept hidden from everyone except in the 7 precepts. So it's like, would he have known about this quirk, especially if it wasn't out in the open? I don't think so. So that's why I don't think that he took Overhaul's quirk, because he didn't know that Overhaul had the quirk. Because he goes by the villain name of Overhaul, but he doesn't know that the quirk is Overhaul. He didn't name the quirk, so it's like he just wouldn't know.
Something that would allow him to circumvent this body-jacking situation and instead repair himself to his prime and ensure victory against literally anybody, as it's a more versatile decay. The common response is that, oh, he didn't know who he was, and yeah, he did. And the other response is, oh...
Wait, what? No.
Across a good quirk doesn't take one of the best quirks in the universe, something that would allow him to circumvent this body-jacking situation and instead repair himself to his prime and ensure victory against literally anybody, as it's a more versatile decay. The common response is that, oh, he didn't know who he was, and yeah, he did.
No, he doesn't! He says, oh, you're the head of the 7 precepts. You're the young head. He doesn't refer to him as Kai Chisake, or even by his hero name, Overhaul. The fact that he knows that he's the young head does not mean that he knows he has the quirk Overhaul. Because even the heroes who have been studying Overhaul specifically only recently knew what his quirk was. So, like, unless like he had tabs on everyone in the 7 precepts, he would not have known that Overhaul had the quirk Overhaul.
And the other response is, oh, he doesn't know his quirk, and Shigaraki does. So he should.
He said he talked some shit about
sorry.
Gentle.
Season's getting a grasp on 20%.
Sorry, let me just... Something else I want to bring up.
Interest. He even goes against more of his own characterization.
Well, yes, Tomura Shigaraki knows what Overhaul's quirk is. You could make the argument that, like, because of, like, the mind melding, it's not like they're communicating directly with one another. Like, we don't know the full extent of the communication aspect of Tomura All For One and All For One, whether or not they can, like, actually communicate information with one another in the same fashion that Deku can communicate information with, like, Tomura. Or, not Deku, but, like, All For One can communicate information with Tomura the same way that Deku can communicate information with All Might. Because, at least with them, it's a one-way street. Unless, like, they're in direct proximity to it.
When met with Overhaul in Tartarus, the guy who talked about not being able to help himself when he comes across a good quirk, doesn't take one of the best quirks in the universe, something that would allow him to circumvent this body-jacking situation and instead repair himself to his prime, and ensure victory against literally anybody, as it's a more versatile decay. The common response is that, oh, he didn't know who he was, and yeah, he did. And the other response is, oh, he doesn't know his quirk, and Shigaraki does. So he should. It's just a ridiculous out-of-character situation that destroys All For One, and unfortunately, he and Midoriya are not the only ones that suffer this arc. Alright, I think everyone understood my AFO point now, we can turn this off. Considering that the Todoroki family plotline had one of the biggest shakeups ever, the following Aftermath arc presented a great opportunity for Endeavor as a character. He had just faced the darkness of his past through Toya, somebody who he failed horribly, coming back to remind him that while he can work towards a new beginning, The past will always remain. He then faces his family in the hospital after the war, and they vow to stop Toya together as hordes of people outside of the hospital attack Endeavor for the existence of Toya. The problem is that nothing really ever happens again. Endeavor just feels massively underutilized despite Dobby's dance being such a game-changing moment, and it almost feels contradictory for me to want more considering how much of the spotlight he had for Act 2. We spent all this time with him learning about his atonement just for him to suddenly fall off the face of the earth and become the guy who says, "Just watch me," and proceeds to stand there as the stand-in for Toya kills himself, and he doesn't do anything to stop it despite having his own personal trauma over this kind of situation. To make matters worse, Endeavor being a wife and child-beating piece of shit just sort of stops mattering to anybody around him. A massive bombshell dropped about the number one in the nation, and only the civilians seem to care. Of course, the civilians are also drawn in a mob-esque light to make them look unreasonable for not liking what Endeavor did, while the other characters of the series basically kiss the ground he walks on. I'm not expecting everyone to turn against him, and it would be quite accurate to say some people with stomach working with him to defeat All For One, but the issue is that the story never shows us people stomaching working with him, only implicit acceptance and approval of what he has done by never having any professional heroes or even the kids denounce him or think negatively for what he has done. We seriously got more of Frog Girl calling the class villains for wanting to save Bakugo than of literally anybody caring that Endeavor got his own child killed. Now, a lot of people take issue with me bringing up civilians being drawn in a negative way, and I would like to explain this a little bit. Explicit denunciation through dialogue or narration isn't the only way to portray things negatively in fiction. These things can be achieved through lighting of scenes, or like the Endeavor scenes in the Toya backstory. This can be achieved through general direction, like a lot of early Bakugo stuff. This can be achieved through narrative means, where characters that deserve to be punished for their behavior continually take L's, like Tanya in the Tanya the Evil's anime adaptation. Or, last but not least, how you draw people in a manga. I think it's fair to say that the way Endeavor was drawn here, and the way the civilians were drawn later when criticizing him, is a little too close. Endeavor isn't the only one who suffers from this sort of implicit acceptance of his actions, but unfortunately, Hawks did not survive the Battle of Villain Hunt. You remember this really big and emotional moment where Hawks, killed someone? One of the very, very few on-screen deaths of My Hero Academia and the only death of a character that has mattered? What if we just, almost never talk about it again until maybe the very end of the story? Let's go ahead and reconstruct Hawks vs. Twice. A government agent manipulates a man before backing him into a situation where he is forced to react violently, and then he extrajudicially murders him. Of course, Twice was a very powerful weapon, but that doesn't mean there weren't other solutions. That is a part of what makes Hawks vs. Twice a great fight, the moral complexity and thought that went into such an encounter. What makes it age poorly, just like a lot of things in this arc, is the lack of any meaningful interaction about it afterwards. Hawks killed somebody, and outside of some mild grilling from a press conference, it seemingly never comes up again. Not from Tokoyami, who was like, "Oh shit, you killed a guy." Not from Midoriya, who could be like, "Hey, how did you kill a dude?" Instead, Hawks kind of becomes a nothing character for this final act, serving as a device to regurgitate the themes of MHA super explicitly, and to have a collar pulled along by Endeavor and the Todoroki family. Now, I'm not even someone who dislikes...
I mean, you could make the argument that Hawks did, for a moment, question Endeavor about, what he did to Shoto, but it's he also realizes that, yeah, you were a piece of shite, but, you've grown better, but,
that he sided with Endeavor after his abusive upbringing. I think that's a cool character decision, but he doesn't really serve much purpose after that. Oh, he's optimistic, I guess. He killed a guy 2 months ago.
This is a great opportunity to really reach out to the community and to show them what an exceptional career being a member.
See, here's an issue that I have with this. Well, yes, it's obviously bad that, Hawks killed a man. They're terrorists, and, objectively, killing someone is bad. But when they're doing an act of terror, or planning an active act of terror, obviously those lines are going to be blurred.
Member of the Los Angeles Police Department.
And I feel as if it's disingenuous with this moment to just say, "Oh, yeah, shoplifting is the equivalent of terrorism." I think... Yeah.
Kugo's apology is one of those scenes that a lot of people were looking forward to for a long time, as his progression and obvious regret for his treatment towards Midoriya had been brewing for a large period of time, and it was brought up in the war arc when All Might was telling Bakugo to not fret. He will get the chance to talk to Midoriya soon. If only we knew back then that Horikoshi's idea of letting Bakugo and Midoriya talk was to let Bakugo talk at Midoriya and let him give no response, ever. The idea that Midoriya was heavily impacted by his treatment by Bakugo and the people around him due to being quirkless was something a lot of people in the fandom believed in until this very moment. Suddenly, we were just supposed to believe that Midoriya was born self-sacrificial and heroic despite My Villain Academia's message of nature versus nurture being such a potent one.
Except the story actively portrays at the beginning of the story that heroes literally act without instinct. So like, the best way to look at it is that there are some people who are more susceptible to good and more susceptible to like doing bad, but like in the case of Deku, we've actively seen him that even without a quirk, which are individualities, your quirk has a direct influence on your personality, which means within the story of My Hero Academia, depending on your personality, for a character like Toga, having a quirk that is like not deemed acceptable, influencing how you view the world, will most likely put you down a path of potentially becoming a villain or a bad guy. It doesn't guarantee it, and that's the idea of nature versus nurture. Neither one side or the other guarantees how you're directly going to end up, because one could drastically influence the other and vice versa. And just in the case of Deku, he has always had this heroic ideology, and if he had a quirk, he would have immediately become a hero without question. But because of the nature of it, of him not having a quirk, he was unable to have that. And we see that that is something that's not necessarily in genetic, but something that is quite often like ingrained in certain people, such as Deku and All Might, who were both quirkless, but even going through different states of societal decay, still came out to be heroes, just who they are at their core, and that other heroes have done the same. So it
doesn't help that so much of Deku and Bakugo's relationship, stretching even as far back as Act 1, has been so completely one-sided and focused entirely on Bakugo's thoughts, feelings, and growth.
And that's a good point, but also that's kind of the point. We've seen how Deku has always interacted with Bakugo, and even during his fight with Bakugo the second time, like, we've already shown that he hasn't shown any type of, like, resentment to Bakugo. While he finally understands how Bakugo feels, like, he never had any type of animosity for him. Bakugo did, and that's why we've been focusing on Bakugo, because he's the one in this relationship that has actually helped that growth. Deku, throughout the entire story, has always viewed Bakugo as a friend. Deku has always viewed Bakugo as a friend. Deku did not. Bakugo has always viewed Deku as an enemy, but Deku has always viewed Bakugo as a friend. That's why it's always been one-sided.
So this moment was even more important for readers, expecting Deku to finally get some sort of introspection and or reflection on Bakugo's treatment of him that amounts to more than, "I hate you, but you're goated." Finally reaching this climactic moment and not letting Deku talk or think at all is in and of itself representative of the core problem with their relationship and dynamic as a whole. Basically, Bakugo gets to dump all of this information on the kid he abused for years, and he doesn't get to respond in the slightest, not even in the stupid fucking bath chapter, and Midoriya's character gets dumbed down even more, not being able to formulate a single thought when it was most important, and seemingly being entirely unaffected by the years of marginalization and bullying, only for the Grim Reaper that is known as Chapter 327, or Season 6, Episode 25, to show its ugly face and knock him down a few more pegs. This chapter is representative of nearly every single thing wrong with the villain hunt.
And this is where we are going to completely disagree once again, because I think that this is, like, not the best chapter, but it's not a chapter that ruins Villain Hunt as a whole.
Arc, making light of the actual trauma Midoriya had by tossing him in a bath to fix everything.
Also, that is a grave exaggeration of what happened. While yes, Deku was put in the bath, he's still like reeling from like what happened during it. Like, we see like he's not as like emotive and like not as like expressionless. Like, yes, it's a comedic scene in the bath, but it's like, even if we tackle what the anime did to show that he's still having trauma from that, which is something that the anime does, it's not like he was like fully recovered. He's not necessarily back to what he was prior, at least from how I'm viewing it.
We go from All Might borderline suicidal, expressing reckless behavior towards Stain, to whatever the hell this is. This chapter completely ignores the apology Bakugo just gave, it ignores the trauma these kids underwent, it ignores Ochako's speech by making her just fall asleep, and it ignores one of Villain Hunt's most emotionally impactful moments of Midoriya leaving All Might behind by resolving it with a gag and making All Might apologize to Midoriya, and having Midoriya blame All Might not being there for his state.
That is also a grave exaggeration. Also, from how I interpreted that scene itself, it was less on Deku and very much from All Might's perspective. Like, the dialogue that we got in that scene was all from All Might. Like, what crushed All Might wasn't like Deku leaving, because even Deku, when he didn't leave with any type of malice. He had sadness in his eyes as he left. That scene wasn't for Deku, it was for All Might, which was paid off in the staying scene and this one following afterwards.
And then having the kids demand an apology from All Might too. This chapter just is a massive kick in the balls, and demonstrates a lot of problems with this arc. Villain Hunt, more often than not, prioritizes ideas over execution. The idea of Midoriya being at his emotional low is cool. Shame if we executed it poorly. The idea of Bakugo finally getting to do his apology is great. Shame if we executed it poorly. The idea of leading a gaunt is cool. Shame if it wasn't executed as well as it could have been. The idea of Midoriya teaming up with the top heroes is cool. It would be a shame if it was practically not executed at all. Midoriya and All Might separating at the apex of the arc is an incredible idea for both of them. Shame if it didn't matter at all. Jesus Christ, man. This has been 8 entire pages of a Google Doc script of me saying this arc sucks, but I want to make it clear that I don't actually dislike everything about it. I have it as a high 4 to 10, maybe. Because it has elements that I do enjoy, and I think it would be unfair to only talk about things I dislike about it in a video talking about the arc as a whole. For one, this arc has an incredible aesthetic, and in my opinion, might be Horikoshi's best work in terms of art. Every single page is incredibly eye-catching, and some of these Dark Deku panels must have taken every drop of ink from his pen. Incredibly in-depth backgrounds and character art make the harshness of the arc really shine. This and My Villain Academia are his absolute best artistic works. I also think that the societal collapse is portrayed pretty well, more or less. Gigantomachia's rampage was an incredibly well-executed nightmare. The city landscape being turned to pure rubble, and the mass distrust that grows post-war paints a very bleak image of something that, at least on the surface, was functioning quite well not long ago. Despite my criticism of Deku vs. 1A, I can't tell you that it isn't a sweet moment. Ida's arc coming full circle and him weaponizing Midoriya's own words against him, that it's a hero's job to extend a hand even when it isn't wanted, that hits, it's good. Another mixed bag for me is Nagant. While I dislike how quickly she came and went, serving further to nullify the series' stakes by not getting to die when she fucking explodes, I enjoy when the series takes the time.
You know who else doesn't die when they explode? Technically Toga. So
time to delve into the darker aspects of hero society, like the state explicitly profiting off of crime and killing people who might threaten that status quo.
I don't think that's not... They're not profiting. What? 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 Okay.
Nagant is also just an enjoyable character. Her design is cool, her quirk is raw as hell, and it's a damn shame that she was only created to be fridged for Deku to say that not everything is black and white. What makes her status even worse is that Horikoshi originally wanted an entire volume of backstory for her. Another
Okay, that's not... To clarify, that's not what that says. It's not that he wanted an entire volume of it. What he says, and it says right here, I could fill an entire volume with Nagant's full backstory, so what you see here is the abridged version. This is very important, with especially what we learn later about Horikoshi's like writing style, is that he purposely leaves stuff out for the reader's imagination, and that's just how he has written his story, which is crazy to think about, but yeah, that's not what that is saying. That is exactly the opposite of what is being said.
Fortunate symbol of My Hero Academia's speeding to the end. Another great thing about Villain Hunt was Ochako's speech, bringing MHA's message that nobody can go it alone to the forefront, and the idea that these superheroes or celebrities are not untouchable gods, but they are just people. This is something it has been subtly showing off for people like All Might since the beginning, and what makes it hit even harder is that it's a satisfying and climactic moment for her overarching who protects the heroes when they need protecting plotline, signifying a massive step for Ochako. It's a shame she fell asleep, though. There's always something, huh? Speaking of All Might, he was great in this arc. After losing his power and watching his ideology crumble to dust, he was put into a situation in Act 2 where he had to find his own value, a new way to continue as Toshinori Yagi. Aizawa tells him he just needs to be him, and staying in Villain Hunt reinforces that idea, telling him that all he has to do is be himself, because it wasn't his strength or his quirk that made All Might the symbol of peace. It was the kind of person he was, and seeing the last person All Might saved to go out there and clean up his statue really struck a chord within him. It's also really cool to have Toshinori finally look at a reflection of his past self through Midoriya, experiencing how the people around him felt about All Might's reckless attitude. Shame about that apology scene, yeah. Not great. The Villain Hunt arc has two sides of its reception. First, there is the general reception, that is how the general fandom of My Hero Academia perceive the arc, and the main way we can quantify that is through sales. And let's just say that Villain Hunt was the best-selling arc ever for My Hero Academia. Of course, whether you dislike or like a piece of art, sales or reviews are not an objective metric of quality for art, but we can definitely say that a lot of people enjoyed this. With great enjoyment sometimes also comes great dislike. The reception of this arc in online spaces is, by every definition of the word, mixed. Some people think this is My Hero Academia's greatest arc of all time, some people say that it's good with some flaws, and some people like me will say that this is the worst arc of the series so far. Villain Hunt, alongside Season 5, which was ongoing at the time, caused the biggest schism in the online fandom. If you dislike the season, people would say that you literally want the animators to kill themselves to satisfy you. And if you dislike the arc, then people would unironically cut ties with you, speaking from experience. This was the beginning of the end of any unity in My Hero Academia spaces, and the following arcs would only proceed to make that worse. To me, this arc just doesn't feel like My Hero Academia. It feels like a rushed mess that no longer cares about its world or its cast. Some of the rules it's established, and more importantly, some of the stakes that it set up all for the sake of hype moments over substance. If you remember in Act 2 during the War arc, My Hero Academia got a new editor, Taguchi, and from this point on, he would become the biggest scapegoat for any criticism of the series ever. Anything that sucks, blame it on Taguchi. Because clearly, he is an evil warlock that controls Horikoshi and is writing as if he were simply a marionette.
Now,
he disliked anything about Villain Hunt, Taguchi forced him at gun.
See, now, we do know that editors do have sway on what the manga could do, but, like, it was never like him.
That's enough about this tragic battle that took the lives of many, destroyed hundreds of mutuals, and started countless bullshit shipping wars. Let us dive into the next offensive.
Alright. That's a lot. And just from watching this, I think I'm going to cut that here. Let me just transition over. There we go. Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, that was a lot. And, oh, hey, Dark. I didn't know you were there. I have not been looking at the chat. So, yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot. Like I said, that was something that I kind of, like, disagreed. Yes, Dark, I see the Gear Shift episode did bang. Nagin is, in fact, Silver Comet. And her story is interesting. Also, she was inspired from, like, a renowned sniper. Oh, I didn't know that last part, but yeah, Deku couldn't even sleep. Yes, exactly. There, you can see Izuku in the best is still traumatized. Exactly. Bro, how can he talk? Yeah. So, yeah. Yep. Just fucking enjoy what you have, given first of all, we all are here seeing animes and pirated websites, then complaining animation of My Hero Academia is just fire. Yes, that is all true. Hawks does have a part to play, Silver Comet, but it could have been done even better. Sure. And a lot of his points are like, oh yeah, it could have been done better, but like he's like, oh yeah, this is like the worst thing, and he says like 4 out of 10. I'm like, no. Like if we're gonna give it like a rating, I'll probably give it like more like a 5 or a 6 at lowest. But yeah, I'm gonna try to go through all of the chats that I missed. I think I'm gonna probably end the stream here. Yeah, just hearing all of that, I know for a fact that I won't be able to go through that entire video, and I probably won't do it on my own. So this may be like my first and like last like review for it, because I think just from there, like me just talking and giving like my rebuttal, like all like even if we cut out like the first like 30 minutes of this like live stream, we only covered like 30 minutes. And if like I do an hour and 30 minutes from like just 30 minutes, and this is like 3 hours, nearly 4 hours, this would be like an 8-hour stream, and like I am not emotionally ready to watch his videos. Like I said, like I don't necessarily agree with like his mindset on like how he viewed the story, how he views the character. I may make a video on like my interpretation of Deku's character, but like overall just kind of disagree with that. But I'm gonna try to go from like the top and see like what I could have missed before I end the stream here, because yeah, that's a lot. Silver Comet, I'm gonna go with here. You could hear me. Tsurugi, he did take his body. I think I read through some of those. I see Tsurugi, ended it, so redacted it. Okay, I see what Silver Comet was doing. Andrew, I was referring to when the scene where Shigaraki's body is falling apart, he reaches his hand to Izuku to try and transfer it into his body. Okay. Okay, I see what you're doing. He didn't actually have the quirk, though. Oh. Maybe. He already had the quirk. Overhaul and All For One never did meet him face to face, though. Yeah, that's the thing. The argument that he was making is that because Tomoe Shigaraki knew, then All For One would have automatically known, but, like, that's not how, like, the information transfers. Like, we don't know, like, how that information actually gets transferred. Like, we know that they can communicate with one another. That is something that we know, but we don't know if that information transfers. Because All For One and All For One's copy, they're connected in a sense, but they're still two separate entities. So it's like, he knows what's going on inside, but it doesn't mean that he has all of the explicit knowledge that Tomoe had. So it's like, it's an assumption, but we just don't know for certain. So that's something else that I was thinking of. And yeah, and All For One did steal the search quirk, so he had never met Overhaul to recognize his quirk. Huh, okay. Yes, that is also true. He doesn't know what the quirk is. And Tsurugi's like, All For One did have Overhaul in the form of Decay, as it was a modified version of Overhaul, so why would he take it when he has that much superior Decay? I wouldn't say Decay is superior. It's the reconstruction aspect of Overhaul that makes it broken, not the ability to decay it. But the issue is, like, that was so long ago. And, like, even, like, we just don't know and have enough information to confirm that he would have known who Overhaul Kai Chisake is, and we don't have enough information to confirm that he also would have known that he had that quirk, especially since his quirk was seemingly kept secret the entire time. So that is just an assumption that we cannot have with, like, enough evidence. He mentioned his name to Shigaraki, but never mentioned if they met face to face, though if they did, he would have stolen his quirk. Actually, no, he never mentions the name to Shigaraki. That's something interesting. And let me actually show you what I mean about that, because this is something that, like, is kind of like a misinterpretation. He never learns who he is. That is something very important that for the story. Tomura never, like, explicitly learns his name, like Kai Chisake. Yeah, here it is. I'm almost there. I'm going to switch over to this page real soon. All right, and transition. Here we go. So yeah, as you can see, I want to see. Let's see. Should be here. Yeah, here it is. He's like, my master showed me his picture once. What's this guy? He's famous. He's like, yeah, he's Yakuza, the young head of the Hisekai. He never refers to him as Kai Chisake. And even, like, later on, he never refers to him as Kai. I don't even think that even with, like, what we see here, he even brings up, like, his own name here. So that's something that I'm saying. He does not explicitly, let me transition over here. Oof. He never explicitly says, like, oh yeah, that's my name. So it's like, even if he wanted to argue that, like, he does not objectively know his name. Quirk name becoming your name is something else. And yes, while yes, he's named Overhaul, that is from the hero's perspective, because they don't know his name, and they're naming him after his quirk, which they are also deeming Overhaul. And if that was the case, then he would have wanted Tomura against his quirk or went after him. Dark, why would you say that? Shigaraki saw it firsthand, other than All For One, who is in the right mind with a strong quirk, would show it to the man he would steal it. Endeavor's mistakes never left, that is also true. Okay, the edge shot thing is, I wouldn't say badly. I would say it was poorly written. I think that it could have worked if there was a little bit more setup for it prior, but with what it is at that moment, it was poorly written. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I think it was poorly written. And Silver Comet, though it would have been interesting to see more reactions for working with Endeavor, while Kamui Woods was also said to be abused as a child. Oh, I didn't know that. So, I mean, here's the thing. I'll give him that. Like, it would have been more to see their interactions. And he most likely would bring up how the villains never really mourned Twice's death. And by Twice's death, I mean specifically Tomura. That is something that is valid with what we've gotten so far. And Dark is saying, am I the only one who still likes My Hero Academia, even though if we see these mistakes that are so unnoticeable? No, you're not. I still enjoy My Hero Academia. I enjoy it even now. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't be making more content on it. So you're not the only one. And then also, once again, Silver Comment, you're not the only one, Dark. I still like Yes as well. Tsurugi, I also like. See, everyone here still likes it. Yeah, everyone here still likes it. And once again, Silver Comment, Hawks does have a part to play. He does, and it could have been done better. Dark, yap. Just fucking enjoy what you're given first. Yeah, I can kind of see with that. Hawks killed Twice, but had Twice not been taken out, they would have killed hordes of people. That is also true. I think the guy who made this video didn't want to acknowledge that after all the first war, there was like a time skip. And like, yeah, there was like a small time skip. And the dialogue between Izuku and Bakugo could have been more in-depth, like have them have one-on-one discussion and have them work together, win to save and save to win. I mean, they kind of do that towards the end, and I could kind of see it, but like from my perspective with like Deku as a character, we already pretty much had like everything that we needed to know about him and how he felt about Bakugo. So Bakugo revealing this information to Deku is not something that is like necessarily new to Deku. It's something that he kind of already knew. It was just for Bakugo to finally realize it himself. And with Dark, what I think should be a complaint is that as pulls and stakes, which My Hero Academia lacks, and also the fandom, these guys literally treat the Arthur when he killed Bakugo. Yeah, they did threaten him. And like, to be fair, this is not necessarily an exclusive My Hero Academia fandom thing. This is just the anime fandom as a whole. It's just with how popular My Hero has gotten over the years, this has become like more like susceptible. This is something that has been happening in the community longer, and just Attack on Titan pretty much had the exact same thing. So it's not unique to My Hero Academia. And then Silver Comet's like, you can see Izuku in the bath and he's still traumatized. And yeah, I think I read through that as well. Threaten Horikoshi's life. Silver Comet, I would have liked the Vigilante arc to be longer, see him fight even more skilled villains who are slowly becoming more skilled with each encounter until the students find him. I mean, yeah, that could have worked as well. I mean, if we're talking about One Piece, like, about killing characters, One Piece is very notorious for not killing characters, but they eventually do come back. But, like, if we're going to analyze that, at least, like, My Hero has explicitly shown, like, civilians and random people dying. That's not something that you really get in One Piece a lot. An analysis from another person, while he has points, he is disliking the story a lot with his responses. He's disliking the story and equating his dislike for it being bad. Yes, Nagin is in fact hot. Cannot disagree with that. I think, yeah, I'm approaching the end. I think I'm close, or maybe not. No, I'm actually not. Yeah, I'm approaching it. Is hot from Silver Comet. Silver Comet also. Oh, also, why is the world did they put All For One in his own prison? You put him in a prison with other strong quirks. Here's the thing. We have to remember that All For One didn't really exist. And when I mean, like, he didn't really exist, I mean, like, he existed as, like, this, like, corporeal entity. Like, he was a legend. He was a folklore. While the people in charge knew that he existed, everyone else thought he was a myth. And, like, unless they were, like, preparing for multiple upon multiple upon multiple of years, it's like saying, oh yeah, we have, like, this terrorist. Let's put him in his own specific cell instead of putting him in Guantanamo Bay. Now, don't get me wrong, that's still horrible, and actually Tartarus is probably more apt to Guantanamo Bay with most likely the mistreatment of the villains there, but it's like, yeah, he's a big bad, but, like, he's also on life support, And it's like, if he tries to escape, they can just kill him. So it's like, I understand why they did it. It's because, like, it's better to have him in, like, an already pre-built secured security than to, like, have to build one on their own that may be less secured and he can escape from it. Like, he couldn't escape from Tartarus because also it was underwater. That's something else that we have to remember. It is underwater in the ocean. So even if they wanted to put him in his own, like, special place, like, that is probably the best place they could have ever put him. It just so happened that Tomorrow 1 was able to come in because he can fly. But yeah, it would have been even cold if they made an entire prison just to hold him near a volcano. Maybe that would be cool. That would also be impractical and dangerous for the people living there. And then you also bring up, trust me, I watched the rest of the video. You can tell he has a lot of dislikes. But wait, I need to mention some things, please. Okay, yeah, you can mention them. Izuku, when he gets his mech suit, said it's being used to collect data. He must be collecting data to prepare for the Quirk Doomsday Theory. Most likely, since Quirks are evolving, technology is working to keep up with, so it could reach a point where tech helps to prevent those problems. Sure. Oh yeah, you're right. He mentions him as the Hisaka leader, but not his Quirk name, showing that he was aware of it. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. And once again, you bring up, in another story, I see there being a story where the Doomsday Theory is more widespread. Most people die while stronger quirks become common among the people. Then they have even stronger people. Yeah, that's kind of the idea of the Doomsday, and starting another age of anarchy while a new villain appears. I mean, yeah, if we cut enough into the future, that's most likely going to potentially be the case. And then we have Dark saying, what's your opinion on the MC Donald's ad promo where Deku is flexing his working ice cream? Oh my gosh, is that a thing? Oh, McDonald's. I thought you capitalized the M and the C, so I'm like, MC Donald? Like, Donald Trump is an MC? But okay. I think I've seen it. Oh, was it in this video? Oh gosh, that's actually crazy. I don't know how I feel about that, so I'm not gonna comment. As we have Silver comment once again, why not have it so that Nejire with her vitality quirk be the one to save Bakugo, considering she can share her energy with others? Well, the thing is, it's a vitality quirk, but the energy itself is not vitality. It's based off of her vitality. Now, if it's explained that she can spread, like, her own personal energy to others and give them more vitality, that's fine. But it's converting, like, it's like saying that she can just give her body fat to Bakugo in the case of Momo so that he'll have more fat. Like, she can use it because she has it, but she can't just give it to someone else. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. As well as it's like Dark is like, Deku's with his IQ is gonna rise to the charts of the heroes. In the end, he is the living Iron Man. I mean, yeah. And MC Donald's Izuku is annoying. Oh, okay. I think I know the means of him working at McDonald's. Yeah, okay, I get it. And then Silver comment, true, keeping Off One alive makes sense. Killing him means that his subordinates will run wild or strive to take control. That is also true. Tsurugi is like, oh yeah, I forgot. Tartar was underwater. Yep. I surprisingly still remember that. And, I'm still curious about the origin of Quirks. And we do kind of get an idea about the origin of Quirks in the Off One origin story. That is true. We don't necessarily know, like, how they started, but we know that, like, it started off small, obviously, and that one of the quirks that Alfwin uses a lot was actually his mother's quirk. So it would be cool to see the origins of quirks, but because of how Horikoshi writes the story, I highly doubt that's going to be the case. And people be sleeping on quirkless Izuku. At the age of 14, he moved an entire truck and carried All Might. Physically, he is a monster. And as an adult, he would become even stronger physically. Yeah, if he kept on training. But yeah, no, he is actually unnaturally strong for his age. Like, it's crazy how strong he is. But yeah, overall, yeah. I'm most likely than not, I probably will not be, like, reacting to the rest of this because that's going to take a while, but I may start doing more live streams in this similar setup. But yeah, I think I'm going to be done. This is probably going to be my last video on Asaratha for potentially ever. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Just gonna read this last comment. Yeah, they mentioned that those with quirks not being humans. Yeah, so it would have been cool if we saw that more and towards this. But yeah, this is my live reaction to Asaratha reviewing every My Hero Academia arc, Act 3 of 3, My Hero Academia retrospective. Maybe I'll make my own retrospective as well and put it out there. That's going to take a while. But yeah, I think this is going to end. I'll ask Silver comments, like, I'll answer that. Did society change in My Hero Academia? Yes, it did. People are now willing to help others instead of just allowing it all to be heroes, to put it on them, and they're taking more active roles to help. So yes, it did change in the world of My Hero Academia. It would be cool if we saw a little bit more of it. But yeah, this is pretty much where I'm going to end the stream for now. So hopefully you enjoyed like watching me react to this video. Maybe I can do more reactions. Actually, if I'm going to do this, I may actually do reactions to totally not Mark's My Hero Academia videos, because those are going to be most likely shorter than this one, and I think that will be even funner and more enjoyable than me just like doing it for Asaratha. So that's probably something that I'm going to do, if not Sundays, whenever I'm free or whenever they come out. So that's probably what I'm going to do, because I think I respect Mark's interpretation of the story way more than I do AsarathhaHS. So we'll see. But hopefully y'all enjoyed this stream. Gran Torino is out of the hospital. Yes, he is. I'm glad you would like to hear my retrospective. Society did change in My Hero Academia. 429 shows that exactly. But yeah, this is probably where I'm going to be. Oh, really? Oh. Silver comment. You make... Oh, I didn't know. I may want to watch those videos if you have them, because I'm interested. But yeah, hopefully y'all enjoyed this live stream, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you guys in my next video. Alright, bye. Oh, didn't transition right. Let's see. This is the one I want to transition to. Bye, guys.